let's open this box and see what revenge Kelly has sent to me for this round of the Mystery Box Challenge. You're watching Whiskey and Whit. My name is Whitney, and if you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel, and if you're a craft buddy, thanks so much for coming back to DIY with me each and every week. Today's video is another installment in the Mystery Box Challenge. If you're new to that, it is basically a big DIY Secret Santa. You get what you get, you don't throw a fit, and you got to take the items from this box, make some magic out of it. You got to use all the items, especially the challenge items, which are going to be tricky. And on top of the main host, which is Courtney from Creative on the Cheap, we also have Kelly Barlow, who sent me this box. And Kelly's rules are, wait for it, everything has to be mini, like tiered tray level mini, and everybody has a theme, so we have to theme all the DIYs in this video to our specific themes. So, can you guess what my theme is? I've got my friends here with me to help keep me on theme for Thanksgiving. I've got my pilgrim friends here to help me think about it. So I've got to make all my DIYs fit within Thanksgiving dinner. So it'll be fall, it'll be Thanksgiving. I know in the past, Kelly has not been too thrilled with me with stuff that I've sent her, and I've dodged a bullet. Well, this time she said, I'm the guest host, I'm getting her back. I got so distracted opening the box from Kelly that I completely forgot to tell you who I sent my box to. My box went off to Christina from Christina Elizabeth, and I had such a fun time packing her box, so be sure to go over and check out her stuff. Her DIYs are so adorable. Be sure to check out her video next to see everything I sent her for this challenge. Oh, cute box. Okay, so remember, I've got to fit all of this into a theme. We haven't done this before. It's been themed boxes, but you haven't had to do your DIYs in the theme, so here we go. While I'm opening this, here's everybody participating in this round. So along with Courtney, myself, Kelly, there are other amazing creators, so you're definitely going to want to check out the playlist, which I will link down in the description for you so you can see what everybody did. I'm the only one with the Thanksgiving theme, so there's other fall themes around the videos, so it's going to be super fun to watch. Hopefully it's fun for me to DIY. It looks very fall. Okay, so first I see a straw bale. Number 2, oh, look at these, they're so cute. Little corn, mini corn picks. Kelly, I thought like a bunch of like worms were gonna hop out at me, so I appreciate you. She texted me, and I think life got a little crazy the day she had to send this, so I don't think she had the full bandwidth to like evil laugh, so yay for me. We've got some burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree. We've got some really cute fabric. Oh, I love this. We've got orange plaid, and we've got like a black, is it black? Yeah, black and brown plaid. Those are pretty. Oh, she sent me so many mini things. A little rolling pin. I don't know why I was gonna say whisk. Okay, I've got a metal thankful, some cutlery. We've got a cow. We've got a wood house plaque, and what's this? Oh, these are cute. They're like little pumpkin place cards. Okay, so challenge item number 2. So I didn't have to unwrap it, but it says use the box. We're a little all over the place right now, so sorry about that. But here, this at the bottom says LOL. What is this? It says Cernak Family Vacation Travel Mode On. So I sent her this in the first box of this year, and that was the one that I had to drop out of because of my son's health stuff. She was like, I'm sending it back to her because I don't need a shirt that says Cernak on it. So I will definitely wear that. I love this purple. That's why I picked out the shirt for her. So thank you, Kelly. I'm excited about that. I will use that. For my challenge item, one of them is this box. Okay, so I have to figure out how to shrinkify this. Okay, not terrible. We're going to put Pilgrim A and Pilgrim B. They don't have names. If you have name suggestions for the Pilgrims, leave them down in the comments. Okay, so we got count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10. Challenge item box 2, and then challenge item 1. So let's open this up. Mushrooms. Okay, so it's not terrible. It's within fall, but honestly, if I'm being totally transparent, I'm not a huge mushroom fan. I'm not big into gnomes. I'm not big into mushrooms, so this does not go with my decor. So we're gonna chop these up and make something else. What? I have no idea. Okay, Kelly, I'm thanking my lucky stars that you were busy see the week that we had to send this out because this is great stuff. So thank you so much. You also make me look like a big old jerk face now because I sent you our stuff. Sorry. We're going to tackle those challenge mushrooms head on. I've got two different projects, but the first one is going to be along with this cow. So I'm going to twist off the bottom of the mushroom and I'm going to pop out the votive candle from the cow. I thought this votive candle was the right size to fit within that base of the mushroom, and I was right, but it wouldn't sit up on its own. So I popped off another piece of wood from the cow and glued that to the bottom, essentially the top, but the bottom now of my mushroom top. The candle fit in there, and now I have this little stand. Now you're like, where are we going with Thanksgiving? Well, I printed out this graphic I designed in Canva on vellum paper. So it's see-through. It's really easy. You print just like you would print on normal paper. And I'm going to cut it out. I printed mine to 11 inches wide by 4.5 inches tall. And like always, I will have this over in my free file library for you. More details on that down below if you're not familiar. Check the description. And we're going to cut this down and leave just a little bit, like 1/2 inch on one end. So then that way, as we're adding our double stick tape to make our mini lantern, it is going to overlap nicely with this gingham in the background. So I'm going to just make sure that my gingham stripes are lined up, push it down, and voila. Now I'm going to turn on my light, put the lantern over the top, and this is so easy, but you guys, this is so beautiful. As I was going through and making a list of all the different themes and ideas for Thanksgiving for inspiration, family kept coming up over and over. And so I wanted to make this lantern to memorialize the family that is not with you on the holidays. I love this. And the other great thing you could do is you could add photos to this. You could do any season, and this could be in memory of anybody that's not going to be with you on those holidays. So you could do it for Thanksgiving and beyond. Up next, we're grabbing the pumpkin little table name card that Kelly sent, as well as the top of our box that we have to use, remember, because it is the challenge item. It was such a cute box. I didn't want to cut it up, but, you know, got to do what you got to do for the mystery box. I grabbed this little ball mason jar container and used the lid piece to trace a circle. This was about the size that I wanted. Then I popped the edges off, and this was a little more difficult to cut than I thought. So if you want to recreate this project, you could easily do it with cardboard. You don't need to be cutting up a box, but you know, I'm following the challenge here. I'm cutting out my circle, and then I'm going to cover it with some orange fabric. I had this fabric in my stash from the last two videos that I've done, both my fall and Halloween dupe video as well as my fabric DIYs. So if you missed those, I will link them for you. And this piece of lighter fabric was also from my fabric DIYs. This is what we printed on. So I'm getting so many uses out of that $3.99 thing of fabric from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to take some embroidery floss and a needle, and I'm going to go along a strip of that lighter fabric just up and down to create this ruffle. So you're going up and down or just left, right, depending on how you're holding your needle. And you want to make sure you have a piece long enough to go around that circle that we just cut out. So you can make this whatever size you want to. Then I'm going to glue that orange piece down, and I did not realize that my salvage was that close to the edge. I guess I was just crafting in the zone. So once I glued it, I cut the slits, I added some hot glue, I folded it over so that I would have just an orange side, and I realized that the salvage was just not going to look good. So I peeled it off, got a new piece of fabric, and then we were back in business. Once your orange piece is down, we are going to take that ruffly piece and glue it around the outside, but on the bottom of our circle. The reason that I used the thread was so I could kind of mess with it and manipulate it as I was gluing it down. So then that way I made sure I had enough for around the outside. It was a little too far out for me for the vision, so I trimmed it down, and then I added a little bit more hot glue around the edge of that box piece to fold it up and kind of have the edges pop up. Now at this point, you're probably figuring out what we're doing because it's Thanksgiving dinner and it's orange with crust, but you know, stick with me because these are so fun. I cut another circle the same size and added it to the bottom, this time with the wood on the outside, and then I cut an additional strip of that light kind of beige fabric to go around the edge because the edge was black and that was just cramping my Thanksgiving style, but the wood, you won't see it, but even if you did, like that was a little less than the stark black. So just glued the strip around the outside, trimmed the excess, and then I thought this really needed some additional pizzazz. So we're going to take some ivory felt. You could also use white, cut out a circle. Again, that lid was my template for all the things. I trimmed 2 circles to that size in ivory felt, and then I started to fold it in half
a few different ways to create these evenly spaced slits around the outside. Once you have your 8 cuts around the outside, leaving a section in the middle so it's all one piece, we're going to cut some curves. So essentially it's going to look like a curved triangle out each side. Once you get everything cut, I took some more of that embroidery floss that I used on our ruffle and I hid the knot on the inside. And then we're going to continue to take our needle through all of these little pointy corners around the outside. So you're going to go through from the inside to the outside, inside to the outside. And once you pull this tight, it's going to start looking like a little dollop of whipped cream. I got everything where I wanted it to sit, and then I took my needle directly through the center and tied the knot on the bottom, and then hot glued this whole thing to my pie. Before I glued it though, I did a little bit of trimming, so if something's popping out not where you want it, trim it down, glue it down. Then my final step was to distress it a little bit. I wanted them to look like fresh baked pies. I started with a dark distressed ink, and it was like, ooh, those are crusty, burny, no. So I ended up using this linen color. It was more of a tan, and it worked out so well. Now we're also going to grab that little rolling pin because I thought that went perfect with pies and baking. I'm going to use the fabric as well from Kelly, and I'm going to trim down a piece just wide enough and long enough to wrap around the barrel of this rolling pin. It was nice that it was a checked fabric because I could use that as a guideline. If you need straight lines, you can also use a rotary cutter and a ruler, but you know, we wing it a lot over here at Whiskey and Whit. Then I'm going to take some Mod Podge and a little makeup sponge. The only reason I'm using the makeup sponge is because it's a lot less waste and cheaper than using a foam brush. So just word to the wise, I've started to put my Mod Podge on with those, and it's so much cheaper than a foam brush. We're going to apply it all the way around, get it all glued down, trim anything that you need. And then my last step was to do a little like rag ribbon technique. So I cut a little slit, ripped the fabric. I used both the orange and the white to tie in the colors from the little pies we just made. And I also like that that then ties in with the gingham fabric as well. My last step was to make a little mini sign as baked fresh pumpkin pies. I love that these nameplates would fold and stand up on their own. So I cut out this decal to the size of the pumpkin with my Cricut, and I ended up doing a reverse weed. So that's when you take out all the insides of the letters, but then you apply your transfer tape right over the top. Then you're going to peel back the big piece, and your transfer tape is going to grip on to those little letter pieces, little design details, so you aren't going to lose them. Also, make sure if you're doing something on paper like this that you're using a paper transfer tape or a painter's tape so you don't rip up the paper. And all three of these mini items go together so well. I am obsessed. Next on our list to tackle is this wooden house. And at first I was like, okay, we'll just make a Thanksgiving sign. And I said, no, you need to challenge yourself because Kelly was very nice to you. And so I thought, okay, let's turn this into something completely different than what it was. So I took a pencil, I roughed out the shape of a pilgrim hat, and I took it outside with my jigsaw and cut it down. This cut actually pretty easily, and it's nice because it's not too intense of a shape. Now, I don't typically move from side to side on the table this much, but I wanted you guys to see what I was doing, so don't feel like you have to do like a little dance around as you're cutting. But I like to clamp it to my little work table, then that way it helps keep it even and in place for me to cut. Then I gave it a really good sand. I'm also sanding down the edges so there aren't any sharp corners. And then I spray painted it with some black matte spray paint. I let that dry, and in typical Whitney fashion, I realized I didn't like it. So I went back to the drawing board, cut out a little bit more on the edges, and I like this shape so much better. So after a quick second paint job, then it was time to go upstairs, give it a really good sand on all those edges that you sanded down with the power sander. And we just want some of those features to be exaggerated on the edges. Once that is all sanded, I'm going to wipe it down with a paper towel, and then we're going to get to work on really making this look like a pilgrim's hat. I used some of this brown check fabric from Kelly, and I cut a strip. It was a little too big, so I cut it down, and then I folded one piece to the center, the other piece to the center, and that created this really fun strip. Now, I made the strip a little too long, but it worked out in my favor because once I glued it down, I was able to cut a little buckle piece. I added some rub and buff to make it look like a gold buckle, and then I added a square of brown check from the original piece that I cut. So then that way it looks like the fabric is going through a buckle. Once everything's hooked down with hot glue, it is good to go. And I love this. How fun is this little pilgrim hat? I had so much fun with Thanksgiving DIYs because I don't really do a lot of Thanksgiving DIYs. And so many craft buddies have been like, where are the Thanksgiving DIYs? And so I'm so excited to be sharing all of these with you guys. And I'm really glad I went back and cut the pilgrim's hat again because he's so cute. Up next, we're going to grab the burlap ribbon from the mystery box, and we're going to take some aluminum foil, and we are going to make a shape that looks like a cornucopia. This was a little bit of a process. I had to pull it apart, put it back together, but I finally got a shape that I liked. Then we're going to grab some saran wrap, and we're going to wrap the foil. The saran wrap is going to essentially make whatever we're going to add to it be able to be released. Then I'm going to mix up a fun little concoction of Elmer's school glue and water, and you want to just water it down to the point where you're making like homemade Mod Podge. You want it to be a little bit more thin so it's going to seep into the crevices, and then we are going to take our burlap, wrap it around our cornucopia, and paint on the glue mixture. Don't be shy, make sure that you load up the glue because we want this thing to harden. If you've ever seen people do string around a balloon for Easter eggs, or the cheesecloth ghosts, it's the same thought process, but we're going to make a cornucopia. Then once my burlap was on there, I thought, okay, I don't want all these holes in it. So I ended up taking pieces of jute twine, putting it in my glue mixture, kind of getting rid of the excess like you would with a paper mache, and then I'm going to wrap these around. I'm going to continue to wrap this all the way around until I get to the end, and then I'm going to let this thing just sit and dry. It needed a day and a half to dry because, like I said, I was not being shy with the glue. But once it dried, now here's the moment of truth. You are going to carefully, once it's dry, pull your little, it looks like a shoehorn or like a shoe form. You're going to pull it out and then you're going to let it dry a little bit longer because the inside's still going to be a little damp because you had that foil, like essentially that mold in there. So we're going to let it dry a little bit longer, and then it is going to be time to finish it off. Then I was able to cut off the extra burlap, and then we're going to add a little bit of extra oomph to it. So I'm going to glue down any extra wispies of the ends of my jute twine that I need, and if for some reason it's too long, I'm just going to trim it. And then I'm going to braid some jute twine together, and I'm going to start gluing it around the front. I did 3 to 4 rows, so then that way that's a little bit thicker like what you see in traditional like Horn of Plenty cornucopia decor. I also didn't want it to lose its shape, so I took some scraps from the felt projects I've been doing and put that in the center of the cornucopia. You're not going to see it, but that way there's a little bit of extra oomph on the inside that's not going to weigh it down, but it's going to help it not collapse on itself, especially because I have 2 young kiddos that will probably want to grab it and rearrange the cornucopia. Also, at this point, I feel like we need a game around how many times I say cornucopia in this video. As I was stuffing it, I realized it was really wobbly, so I grabbed some of these teeny little mini, if you will, theme of this video, wood beads, and I glued 4 of them to the bottom to act as like little legs, essentially, so then that way it was not going to be all wobbly and flop over on my tiered tray, because that's the worst. When one thing falls, everything falls. Then I grabbed some more of that fabric from Kelly that we used earlier for the little rolling pin, and I cut 3 circles. Then I'm going to take the same approach that I did for the ruffle earlier, but I'm going to do it around the outside of this circle. What that's going to do is create kind of what looks like a shower cap, honestly, and we're going to stuff the inside. So you want to make sure your right side of your fabric is on the outside. Then because your one side has a knot where you started, you're going to continue to pull with the stuffed shower cap. We're just going to go with that. And it is going to create this little ball. Then we're going to take that needle again and go through the center, up through the bottom, and we're going to continue to go around the outside until we get all of these curves that make it look like a pumpkin. Once your pumpkin is as lumpy and bumpy as you want, then you can tie off the bottom, and you can do that as large or as small as you want. If you want a regular size pumpkin, you can do this and just like trace a big bowl. But I went even minier to make a little mini pumpkin stack for my little Horn of Plenty cornucopia. Then I took those corn picks from Kelly and I cut one down because it was a little too big for the setup that I was working with. So I cut it down and glued it back in the corn husk. And then I also thought these would be so cute to look like Indian corn. I know here in the Midwest, these multicolored corns are huge for fall decor. So I took the rest of the 6 little ears of corn. I added both this deep burgundy color, I did a deep orange, a brown, and then I also did some antique wax and buffed it in there. And I love how different that they look, and this feels more fall. The bright corn felt a little more summery to me. And then I put them in with the straw bale from Kelly in this bucket I got from Amazon last year when we hosted Thanksgiving. It didn't make it out, so I'm really glad that it worked with this setup. And then I also put a couple of those on berry picks to add to the look. Then I'm using just a wide variety of fall things that I had around my craft room, from these Hobby Lobby stickers to a mini pumpkin to the ones that I made. Once I got the look that I liked and hooked everything in place, I took the rest of these little bits and baubles and threw them in a container, because when I'm putting together my tiered tray, I want to make sure I have options. Then you might have peeped the thankful sign. It looks a lot different than when Kelly sent it to me, and I did the same technique that I did in my mystery box in the spring with some cinnamon and Mod Podge. So this is cheap cinnamon in just a better shaker bottle. Please don't use organic cinnamon for your crafts, but you're just going to add some Mod Podge, put it on as if you were glittering it essentially, and then we're going to do a coat over the top. I did that twice, and then you are going to let it dry. It's going to look like this, but it is going to dry like it is a beautiful rusted effect. And I just tucked it into these berries. So essentially it's going to work as like a pick. And I like that it blends in, but it also stands out way better than the silver for the vibe we're going for. And then here is that second project with the mystery mushrooms that I told you guys was coming. So we're going to pop the top off again like we did for that lantern, and I'm going to grab some brown felt. I had so much felt left over from my last few projects, especially these colors, which came from my DIY felt wreath that I made in my dupes video. So if you would like a felt wreath, check that out. I'm going to cut out 2 peanut shaped looking ones, and then a turkey beak and a turkey gobbler. Then I'm taking the color Territorial Beige, and I'm going to paint that mushroom piece so it blends better with my felt. So the original plan here was to cut up this cutlery that Kelly sent and use it as feathers. And once I cut it, I was like, no, this turkey face is going to be so cute, and then the feathers are going to be wah wah. So instead, I decided to do felt for the feathers, and then I'll show you how I end up using the cutlery instead. So I started by using coordinating colors to hook on my beak and my little gobbler. And then I'm using a French knot here where you wrap around your needle 3 times and pull it back underneath. It took a little oomph, but that is going to create a little raised circle for the eyes. In my house, I don't like to do like beads for eyes on anything because I have a small kiddo, and I started doing that when Finn was little, and it's just personal preference. You could also stitch on a couple little beads if you want, or marker, paint, whatever. Then I'm going to take my second piece of my little peanut shape, and I'm going to blanket stitch around the outside until I get to close to the end. I'm going to stuff him up, and then I'm going to finish him off, and then I've got this cute little turkey body. Then, like I said, we are going to do the feathers, and here is what they're going to look like. I did some testers. I liked how they looked, so here is how I did it. I cut 2 of the same shape. I just freehanded this feather / leaf shape, and I'm going to do a back stitch all the way up the leaf. So to do that, you are going to overshoot your last stitch, and then you're going to come back to where your last stitch ended. So we're going to do that again. We're going to overshoot that stitch and then come back where your last stitch started, essentially where you came up. Then once you make it to the end, to add the little offshoots of the leaves, I'm going to go out to where I want it to start, and then I'm going to come back through that middle hole where that stitch happened. It's going to be a little stretched out, and that's helpful because then that way you are going to cover it with the embroidery floss, and also it's going to show you exactly where to stitch back. So continue your way all the way down. So go out to the center on either side. Again, this does not have to be perfect. I've been loving doing felt crafts because the more imperfect it is, the more whimsy it feels. And then once you have that done, you're going to sandwich up your 2 pieces, blanket stitch like we did for the turkey around the outside, stuff it, and then finish it off. I did that with all of the colors that I had scraps left over from my felt wreath, but you could make this turkey whatever color that you want. Then I took a cutlery piece, cut it down, and painted it the same color as my little body, the mushroom body. So then that way it could be a little stand because I was like, this is round, it's going to fall over. So we're going to trace that mushroom body piece on our other challenge item. So we're using 2 challenge items together. So we'll tick that box even though we didn't have to, but you know, pat on the back here. we are going to do the same thing we did with those pies earlier. So create a circle, snip it, and then attach it. And then we are going to use this as a base to mount our feathers. So I kind of did a dry fit, figured out where everything needed to go, and then I hot glued it down, and then I sandwiched the turkey body on the front. I just added some hot glue there and stuck it down. Now, it would be really cute if you want to make this and you don't have to use the mushroom, just do everything minus that and put the turkey body in front, but I had to use the mushroom, and honestly, I'm not mad about it because it looks like a little plump turkey ready for Thanksgiving to me. So then we are going to add our final pieces to Mr. Trevor Turkey here. We're going to glue the piece down so it's not going to fall over, and then we're going to glue our little peanut turkey body to the front. How fun is he? I love him so much. I just paired him with this little free printable I did last year, so this is over in my free file library too, in a Dollar Tree frame for Thankful, and it is so fun. So now the moment of truth. Do all of my projects that I did go together on a tiered tray, mini version fitting the theme of Thanksgiving dinner? Well, you be the judge. I started with this tiered tray, and I actually made this, and it is going to be coming in a tutorial in next week's video. I'm going to be doing fall and Halloween wood builds, so make sure you're subscribed and your notifications are on for that, because it is going to be a super fun video. But here's how everything came together. Take a fun little tour of my tiered tray and let me know in the comments, how do you think I did with this challenge?
That's gonna do it for this round of the Mystery Box Challenge. Here's a reminder of everything that Kelly sent me. I'm obviously filming this before I DIY with them, so let me know down in the comments how you think I did. I am so glad that you came along for another round of this challenge, and also be sure to check out the description down below so you can watch the full playlist. You can see what Christina made with the stuff that I sent her, and what everybody else made with their box and their specific theme. Can't wait to see all of the mini DIYs. Huge thank you to Kelly for this awesome box. A huge thank you to Courtney for always hosting and doing all the work behind the scenes. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye!